Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
So again, welcome and thank you for joining us for Leveraging AI to drive system adoption and improve project outcomes with our presenter, Linda Lambert. My name is Kim Heyer. I'm with GP Strategies and I'm going to be your host for today's session. So I want to introduce you to Linda. She is my esteemed colleague who has worked for over 25 years in the field of human performance technology, helping clients improve the overall performance of their organizations and employees. She has over 20 years of experience designing and delivering solutions for companies implementing traditional ERP and cloud-based systems. We have a really great session planned for you today. And with that, I want to hand it over to you. Linda?
Thank you so much. And I'm realizing I forgot to go to my introduction slide as we were going along there, but no worries. And Kim, thank you for being here today because Kim's been a little under the weather, but she pulled through.
Only for you, Linda.
Thanks. So as we were talking about this topic, and if those of you who are here today, I think probably saw the overview of what we wanted to talk about. I've been working more than 20 years, 25 years, maybe close to 30 years doing system implementations, starting with SAP way back in the day when SAP was brand new to North America. And so time and time again on projects, I've seen that, we try to drive adoption, but there are so many factors that impact that. And we obviously try to make sure that we have better project outcomes. Again, so many things. And as AI has come to the forefront now, GP Strategies has been working on this topic quite a bit, but we've also been working on it in my group of technology adoption to think about how are we going to be using this new capability to drive more project success. And that's really was the genesis of this session today. I can't wait to hear from all of you what questions you have. If you have a moment and want to put it in the chat, I'd be really interested in learning what it is that brought you here today. What's your role or what's your connection to this topic? Because that'll help us maybe target things. Are you learning people? Are you IT people? Are you business people on a project right now? Where are you coming from, or are you students? I know a lot of times we have students that join these sessions. So take a moment if you can and put it in the chat. But I want to start out really with talking about what drives system adoption. We think companies spend billions of dollars a year putting in new technology. What drives that? Why are they doing it? And how are they successful in that? Because we know there are plenty of places that we don't have success, and the first thing obviously that's going to drive system adoption is having a process and a technology solution that works and meets business goals. I mean, if you're putting in a crummy solution that doesn't help your business, obviously it's not going to get adopted well. And that is, the primary driver, I think. But in supporting that, there's some really important things. Obviously, we need a project that's executed on time and on budget. All those projects that run over and sometimes even get stopped because they can't be executed on time and on budget, that is definitely a huge issue. Strong leadership support. Obviously, if you don't have good good leadership involvement, you don't have good sponsorship, that is going to be a major problem in system adoption. But then we get to something that I think is going to, based on the chat, resonate with y'all, which is effective training and performance support. And one of the things that's been fascinating to me over the last few years is this idea of training and performance support, or I would say learning and performance support, and how that plays into driving system adoption. So often learning and performance support is an afterthought in these projects. The focus is all on the technology and getting the technology going. But then we have this idea that at some point, somebody has to use that technology. And so that's where we all, as learning and development professionals, come in. And it looks like we have a lot of folks who are on the line who have that background. And then last but not least, and equally, important then is just the last thing, which is that positive user experience with the new solution. And so it's not just about putting the solution in, it's not just about having training on it that's effective, but it's also the broader organizational change management and the user's experiences. So as you can see, the people side of things here outside of the project is really critical in that system adoption effort. Now, similarly, or on the other side, we talk a little bit about why projects fail. I know probably everybody on this call has been part of a project that's either really struggled or outright failed. And why is that? We all have these personal experiences, but if you boil it down a little bit, I think there's probably 5 things we could look at. One is a lack of clarity on the vision and the execution strategy. So that idea that we are not all agreed on why we are doing this and how we're going to do it. Secondly, lack of effective leadership. And we saw that effective leaders drive adoption and, at the same time, a lack of effective leadership can really make projects fail. And I know I have been on multiple projects where the leaders really fail. We really struggled. And that had a very negative impact. Another thing is poor stakeholder involvement and communication. So all of these big projects that I'm thinking of, certainly enterprise-wide projects, it's critical to have those stakeholders outside the project team involved and to be communicating with them regularly. And then you don't want to get to the end of the project and find out that they don't understand why you're doing something or how you're doing it. And then they come back and, have issues. Another reason here is inadequate or wrong resources. And every project is understaffed, I think. Some are more understaffed than others. Some of them, sometimes the person who happens to have time available gets staffed on the project and they aren't the right person for the job. So that's another thing we have to worry about. And resourcing is certainly a major reason why projects fail. And then lastly, I'll put in this issue of lack of alignment or working in a silo. And so often we have projects that have multiple process areas, for example, and the folks, in one area have no idea what the folks in another area are doing. And in these enterprise-wide systems, those areas all need to be in sync and interacting well. So that being said, I think probably y'all have, examples of each one of these, but I want to take a second and just ask everyone, and type your answer in the chat if you could. If you could fix one project challenge for this kind of a project, a system implementation, what would it be? And I'll give you a minute to type in some of those answers. You could fix one implementation project challenge, what would it be? Okay. Ensuring that examples used in training are relevant to the business. That is a great thing. Yeah, Lisa, time. Absolutely. I see resource availability from someone else coming straight to me. Schedule changes, keeping aligned. I magically loosen the resource constraints of project team members. Magically. Yeah. Oh, the IT skills of our users. Yeah. Yeah. So that's really around training and performance support, right? Making sure that the users have got what they need and maybe the prerequisite skills as well, Marie. Okay. Yeah. It's and I see some themes here, which I think are the themes that I think of as well in my when I pull out my magic wand that I want to fix. So let's think about, so our AI solutions potentially offer some help in these areas. And that's really what I want to talk about today. So how could AI help with these challenges? One thing is AI could provide a one-stop shop for information about the project and help maintain alignment around onboarding. So we've got new project team members that are joining the project because, somebody left or we're expanding. How do we get them up to speed? How do we teach them what we've all learned from the first 6 months of being on this project? Helping to ensure alignment. So what is this group doing versus that group doing? How are we handling this particular topic? That is something that could definitely be helped with AI capabilities. And just in general, finding information about other parts of the project. One of the things I see that I'm like, is just magical to me is to be able to take a mountain of documentation the project has created and be able to go in and look for roles. As an L&D person, what roles are impacted by this project? I could go through 1,000 pages of paper, or I could ask AI to do it, and we'll show you that in a minute. So this one-stop shop for information is really, I think, a huge possibility here. The other thing is the idea of being able to use it as a quick start for our efforts. So I just mentioned it could be the source information for role and process impact. We could use this information to jumpstart communication, so newsletters or other messaging to stakeholders and impacted audience. And then the big magic bullet here is to help us design learning and performance support materials. And that one we're going to see in a minute in the system that I'm going to demo. But when you think, very often learning and development folks show up on the scene well into the project. We don't know anything about what's going on. We have to do a lot of ramping up before we can even speak intelligently about what's happening and what we ought to do from an L&D perspective. So that piece there can really, really help us with resource challenges and constraints. Let me talk a little bit then about how this might work. The idea here is that you have all this existing company content. And it could be business process documentation. It could be conference room pilots, CRP recordings or notes, things like that. Existing learning content. Maybe this is a upgrade, or you're, leveraging existing business processes and putting a new system in place. So existing learning content might be very relevant. Policies and procedures or standard operating procedures. All that stuff is existing knowledge in your company that can be leveraged. So in the term we use in our AI content is ingest and deconstruct. So taking in all this information and figuring out how does it all hang together? What are the bones of this? And I'll use my term ideational scaffolding, but how does it all hang together? And taking that in, the tool then does what we're going to talk about in these 3 items here. Normalize and structure in reusable segments. So we're building a knowledge base of trusted content. And I say trusted content, so that assumes that what you're bringing in has a certain amount of validity, okay? Then we're using that knowledge base, that everything that we brought in, to create new resources. So that could be learning, it could be process information, it could be dictionaries, all kinds of things can be built using this knowledge base. And then finally, and this is the part that I think is really important, is applying the expertise to whatever's being output. So we as humans know what good looks like. AI does not know that yet. And I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But this adding in of the human expertise is really important. The other thing I'll say here is that a lot of folks I know, learning and development professionals in the world, are going out to ChatGPT and other sources to find, to say like, oh, I need to write a course on how to use, how accounts payable in Oracle works. Well, that's assumed, you don't know what that source of information is. The idea here is you've got this internal, normalized, structured knowledge base that you trust, and then you are working with that. And then based on all that stuff, you can output content as needed on demand. So some of the things that we've used or have thought of using, onboarding content, certainly, change management communications, project team training, learning. A lot of companies are leveraging this sort of database to do chat bots where you can ask the SME, and that could be within a project team, ask the SME, subject matter expert, or it could be outside of the project team, to the general employee base to try to find information. Glossaries, reference content, all kinds of things could become outputs here, depending on the tool you're using and how it's designed. I'll pause for a second. Any questions, please write them in the chat, and then I'm going to show you a sample of what a tool that we use at GP Strategies that it's a, I'll say, evolving tool because it's changing constantly as we figure out new capabilities. That's kind of bleeding edge tool, but I want to show it to you. It's called Content AIQ. And this is a GP Strategy product that we use. We don't use it with our customers without telling them and getting their permission. It is proprietary. It is internally. So this is protected from external use. But basically it's secure and it's dedicated, and we use it to jumpstart learning and development projects. So it's doing stuff, it runs on ChatGPT, but it's optimized to really try to drive out learning solutions. And there's a portal, it'll show you in a minute. You upload what you have, existing assets, so they can be looked at and leveraged. And what I've seen is that it can really have a lot of, save a lot of time in terms of analysis of content, certainly, and then design and development and delivery of content. And the big benefit I think I see here for us in enterprise system adoption world is just the ability to minimize or decrease the amount of time that the project team has to spend getting us learning folks up to speed so that we can do the work that we need to do. So let me just show you what it is. I'm going to switch over to the system. You can see this is the alpha release. And here I am. So you can see this is in a staging area for us right now. It looks, it's, fairly easy user interface to see. On the left-hand side are the major sections of this tool. So the first one I'm going to show you is the file library. So this is where you put in the content that you want to include. And sorry, I'm moving the screen around here a little bit. And you can see here, I've got a bunch of content that I've put up in here. This particular product, you can bring in PDFs, you can bring in any kind of Microsoft project or a Microsoft product. You can bring in videos, MP4s. There's an MP4 in here, and you bring it in, and it summarizes kind of what this is covering from a skill perspective, because a lot of our customers are looking at, I have all this learning content, and now we're trying to do more with our workforce development, and we're trying to build skills, really focus in on the skills our resources need, and how do we provide the right skill development content to them. So skills is really important here. When was this document created in the AIQ? What's the status? So when I first bring one in, it's going to say compiling, and then it becomes ready. And then over here on the right-hand side, you can see some actions that you can do with this. So obviously delete it. This is around generating the metadata that's associated with this file. And then here you can see, actually, if I wanted to go in and look at the details of the file, here's the raw content. Here's the generated summary for each page of it. So here's, you can see I've got a bunch of things here predominantly around accounts payable, requisitioning, purchase orders, procurement kinds of things. Okay. based on this, we can then go in and create a knowledge base. So the knowledge base I've decided to create is around Oracle knowledge for our company. And you can see I created this a couple days ago in this new version of Content AIQ. And when I go into it, it actually shows me, based on the documents that I've loaded in here, what are the topics that are covered and what are, and with, along with brief descriptions of them. And you can even drill in further, and it has, I mentioned sort of this idea that it's organizing all the knowledge. So within that, there are entities, subtopics of knowledge, and it tells me what's covered in there. So this very quickly created all this within this knowledge base, and this exists for each one of these major topic areas. So this is really building the scaffolding of what our knowledge base is. Okay. You can also within here then create workspaces. And so I have a corresponding workspace that is called Oracle Knowledge. And I've gone in and created some outputs based on this knowledge base that we just looked at. So if we come in here, we'll see there's different kinds of outputs. This particular tool is learning focused. So if I were to go in and create a new output, I could create a course outline, I could create a course summary, I could create a video script, I could create an assessment. If you come in here, I'm going to look at this video script that it created for me. And here is the prompt on the right-hand side. This video should summarize Oracle purchasing for GP at for a general audience. Duration should be less than 3 minutes. Now it's asked me some additional questions, like what do you want to cover, etc. And it's come all the way down to asking me, you know, it's confirmed some things. And then it actually, at the bottom of the chat, generated the script that you see on the left now. And you can see up at the top, there's the description, there's the parameters that I identified. And as you go down, it actually has the scene. And this is the point where you'll see that it's got a starter for me, but this is where we really need to put in that human knowledge. So as you go down, and I'll kind of scroll slowly here, you'll see that we've got all of this information, and we get to the bottom and it tells me my closing is from 1:25 to 3 minutes. Well, obviously as a L&D person, I know I don't need that. So this is where I would take this content and go on. And then the last thing I'm going to show you over here is the chat functionality. And again, here are questions that have been posed against this document, of these documents. And you can ask any kinds of questions here and get answers back, and based on whatever documents you have selected. So keeping an eye on the time here, I'm going to go back over, and you've seen the tool now. Just a few of the case studies, and you'll have more detail on these in the slides. But, you know, you think about the capabilities here, just content exploration. You come onto a project and you've got a mountain of content. You can use this to create, you know, you'll have metadata, so you'll be able to search on things. You can create these taxonomies, tie things to skills. You can use it to do all kinds of understanding of what exists. The virtual SMEs and project team in the middle there, providing a chat interface to this content can save so much time for your project team. And that obviously was a concern that all of us had. And then you can get summary information you can use for all kinds of purposes. And then, of course, in the far right side, you know, leveraging this existing content, you can see to do design, to do development. You could also use this as chat AI driven. So a lot of organizations are looking at things like, how do I provide these links to end users so they can go in and say, you know, tell me about X, you know, this process or these roles and responsibilities, and get back summary information. I'm going to pause now and say, are there any questions or comments? I'd love to hear in the chat if you think this looks interesting and something that would be relevant to the work you do. Kim, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, great, Linda. I was so enthralled, and then I looked at the time and I was like, oh my. No, but it's so interesting. It's so cool at what we can do with technology now to really help with resources. I do have I'm conscious of time, and I wanted to make sure that we answered a couple of questions that came in through me. And if you do have any other questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A option. So I have a question here that says, what is the benefit of going with a tool like the one you just demonstrated versus just using an AI tool our company is using?
Yeah, I think the one benefit is this is really targeted toward the use that we as learning and development professionals have in terms of being able to use it to develop training, to design training. And it's also obviously, just in general, you don't, I mentioned before the ChatGPT, you don't want to put all this proprietary stuff out on the internet. So it does give that secure environment to do that in. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Lisa kind of commented on that as well in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, time for one more question. So it says this is a little bit off topic, but what other AI uses are you seeing as you look at training for system implementation projects? Good question.
Yeah. Yes. And that maybe that's the next webinar really, but it's so interesting. I've been doing I've been doing work for a particular customer where we're looking across digital adoption platforms. So these are the help, what we used to call help content that people are generating, and in-app help, walk me, what fix, SAP Enable Now, all those kinds of tools. And the AI that is starting to come in through those is really fascinating. So, like I said, that'll be the next webinar perhaps, but the ability of those tools to either do work or support work for people is really the next generation. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Linda. I want to thank you, and I want to thank everybody who joined the call today for this really wonderful discussion. And at the end of the session, we do ask you take a minute to fill out our survey. Your feedback is important to us to make us better. We hope you'll join us again for another one of our upcoming webinars. Be sure to go to gpstrategies.com/webinars to view our future sessions. And I want to wish everyone on the call a wonderful and productive rest of your day and a happy new year.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
This webinar was brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we help organizations transform through their people. You can access more webinars or download additional resources by visiting the GP Strategies Resource Library. The link is on your screen and in the description.